You're listening to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Gillis, copywriter, word magic maker, and owner of What Sarah Said. On this podcast, you'll feel empowered to show up online in a way that has you saying, "That's so me." Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Copywriter On Call podcast. I am your host, Sarah Gillis, and I am logging some on-call hours today with Laurel, a brand and show it web designer and Pinterest manager. Welcome to the Copywriter On Call podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show.
Of course. I can't wait to get to know you more and share all of your good expertise with the audience. So I always start my podcast the same way. I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Laurel Vines of Vineyard Creative Co. The Vineyard is kind of a play off my last name. And I'm a brand and show web designer and Pinterest strategist. I kind of like to say organic traffic acquisition strategist. I love to help people with Pinterest and SEO because they kind of go hand in hand, actually, I think. So I really just love helping creative business owners get more visible online and have platforms that work for them 24/7 so they can spend more time living their life and doing the creative work that they love and a little bit less time stressing over their marketing or showing up in ways that don't feel authentic and good to them.
I love that. Where are you based out of, Laurel?
I am just south of Cincinnati, Ohio, so firmly based in the Midwest.
Yeah, I love it. Well, as a South Dakotan, I'm a Midwest girly too, so it's always nice to come across somebody who calls the Midwest home as well. So love that.
Yeah, I love South Dakota too. My husband and I full-time RV'd for a couple of years, and that was one of our favorite spots. South Dakota was so pretty.
So cool. That's awesome. We're on like the more boring flat side of the state, but at the same time, it's mostly all I've ever known. So it feels like home. That's for sure. Well, I love already the vibe that you're kind of bringing to this. I love working smarter and not harder. And so I know that the purpose of this episode is really to dive into Pinterest and talking about how photographers can use Pinterest. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your work on the branding and website side. So why, how, where did that come from? And what do you love about creating visuals that have an impact for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I'm a designer at heart. I'm not a officially trained designer. I took a few classes in college in design, but I pretty much always freelance. Like from the time I was in high school, I was making things. My mom was an entrepreneur, so she had small businesses. So I was making her graphics, her newsletter, things like that. And then just friends and family did it from there. But I've always had a love for aesthetics and design. And then when I started my business full-time, it's had many iterations throughout my life. But I've been doing it full-time almost coming up on 3 years. Awesome. And when I started it full-time again, I kind of dove first into all things creative. So I was doing social media management and, just anything product packaging, all the things. And then just being a virtual assistant. So I definitely have that Jane of all trades thing going on. But that's where actually Pinterest came in because I loved the visual aspect of that platform and how creative you could be. And that was where I was going for a lot of inspiration as well. So, and then when I really decided, okay, brand and web is what I love. Pinterest was where I was going for a lot of my inspiration. I was like, how can I use this for my business and my clients' businesses? And the more I found out about how powerful it is and how all the powerful SEO and all the ways that you can use it to drive traffic to your business, that's when I just fell in love.
I love that. I am such a words person. And so I'm always amazed by people who are visually proficient, visual artists. It's an aspect of my repertoire that I wish I had, that I wish that I could feed like a cat or like a dog. It's almost like that I think it's like looking at someone's grass and saying, oh, the grass is always greener. I love me some words, but gosh, the visual piece, like I'm so grateful for all of y'all who have those gifts. And I think that's why I love working with photographers too, because I get to like bring some words to your visual gifts. But I love that for you. And I love that that's kind of been your wheelhouse ever since. That's so fun.
Yes, and on the other side of that, I really appreciate copywriting, and copywriters can just write all day, because that is the side that like I can do it, but it takes so much for me, and I'm like, it's not my wheelhouse. So I'm always just amazed at copywriters and what they do, and like how you're able to,
Love it.
bring to life and, like speak to the ideal client. I just love that. So
yeah, well, the grass is always greener. I love that. I think that's awesome. That's why y'all need both of us, right? That's why we work so beautifully together. I love the idea of bringing words together with visuals, because it really is about creating that impact. And I think you need both in order to create that impact, draw in your ideal client, and tell the story of who you are and what you do. So love that. So when you're thinking through all of your different services, you mentioned the Jane of all trades, and that's literally what I would call you. So you have the branding side, the website side, the SEO portion, and then Pinterest. So how did you land on, yes, this is exactly what I want to do, these kind of 4 buckets? And do you have a favorite way that you like to support people?
Yeah. Well, to me, it is a lot, but I always think of them as very connected, because you have that your brand and website, like your home on the internet, and then like how do we drive traffic there? So SEO, which I think is so important for every website designer to know, because it's such a powerful tool, and it's really important to educate your clients on it as well, about how they can be growing it. So that's something I just think of as like really integral to the way I build websites, because I always want to make sure that people's websites are working for them, that they are, not just they're looking pretty, but they're, like a powerful tool. And then Pinterest is a way to really kind of like supercharge your SEO in a sense, like not just having to rely on Google, but also having this other platform, especially if you are someone who has incredible visuals, like a photographer, that Pinterest is an amazing place to display your portfolio and drive that traffic, even if you don't have time to pull out, be blogging every week, or, like if you're not pushing out a ton of content, it's a great place to repurpose. So I love taking people from that, like either starting out with their brand web design for the first time, or maybe like rebranding after they've been in business a couple years, and then kind of getting strategic with where is their traffic going to come, and then kind of like carrying on that journey with them with SEO and Pinterest.
I love that. So I think that you just spoke so beautifully there. Like it is about, meeting somebody where they're at on the journey, but like how can you take what they already have going for them and propel them forward, whether it's through SEO or through Pinterest. And I feel like the brand design is something where we typically all like to start, right? Like I'm going to put together a website. What is my identity? What am I going to do? And I feel like the supercharge comment that you made is just that's totally what it is when you combine the beautiful visual elements with the power of SEO, and then the power of really using Pinterest to kind of propel your content forward. So I think that's so great to think about, as like you don't have to tackle them all right now. It can be something that evolves as your business evolves, as you kind of grow into your expertise and grow into, what kind of offers do I want to put out there? And it can be something that grows with you too.
Yes, exactly. And I do really think that, like Sarah, what we do like with focusing on that website piece, is the first part, because I know a lot of people will come to me and they'll want Pinterest, but they don't have a website yet. And I'm like, well, yeah, really having that piece is super, like that's the first step. And then we have the Pinterest to, make sure that we're sending people somewhere that's going to convert, like a website well built that has great copy.
Yeah, somewhere that you own, somewhere that you have put your stamp on and that you continuously nurture. I feel like that's so important as you move into Pinterest. So let's dive into specific strategies. So one of the first things that I learned early in my business journey is that Pinterest is not a social media platform. Instead, it's a search engine. And so I want you to kind of just ideate on that for us a little bit and explain how, even though some people might view it differently, it truly is a place where people go to search.
Yes, it really is. So Pinterest, it gets grouped in with all the other social media platforms, but it really, the algorithm has more similarities to Google than it does most search or social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, or something like that. So when you think about like a search engine like Google, it's not driven so much by engagement. So social media platforms really want you to be on the platform engaging. Hence the word social in the name. So it's more drive down like engagement, commenting, and engaging with other people's content. Like putting out a lot of things like showing your face. It's a very personal platform. Pinterest is really just a visual Google. So you're looking, these are people who are looking for inspiration. They're planning a project. They're really leaning into that search bar quite a bit to like look for new things, new ideas, versus them like following a creator and like really staying faithful to them. So they're looking for new things constantly. So it's really vision based on like keywords, similar to Google would be. So a lot of the same principles that you might use in your website SEO are going to apply to Pinterest as well.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I'm thinking back on my own use of Pinterest, and I still utilize it to this day for kind of a visual mood board of sorts, right? Like whether it's paint colors for my office, or it's like, gosh, I wish I would have, like, when I got married in 2010, Pinterest was not a big thing. And gosh, I sort of wish that it was, but I'm almost glad it wasn't at the same time, because I felt already overwhelmed with ideas. And so I feel like if I had access to like Pinterest, that would have overwhelmed me a little bit more. But at the same time, like that's the beauty of it, right? Is that you can build a mood board, you can build kind of a visual list of sorts that's an idea generator. And obviously for photographers whose visuals are so strong and so striking and so stunning, it's a great playground for photographers. So how can photographers tap into kind of that energy of this visual mood board of sorts and get their services or their images on Pinterest?
Yeah. So I would say the number one thing is like, start pinning galleries that represent, what the kind of ideal clients that you're wanting to attract. I see really carousels and collages doing really well. So, like, instead of pinning those horizontal images, think about what's going to really stand out in a feed. So, I always say vertical images, like, lean into those. But if you want to use those horizontal images, make a collage or something like that. People love those. But yeah, really leaning into as well, like your location, the kinds of venues that you're shooting at, or the ones that you want to shoot at, in those words. So in your pin titles, your pin descriptions, that's really gonna help you attract the right audience. Because I would say like a lot of people don't realize that Pinterest can be a local, like used for local business. So for a photographer, for instance, if you are like specifically wanting to target a certain location, I would say for most businesses, Pinterest is not great for like just a local business, but for wedding and travel and things like that, people are definitely looking for like their venue. They're going onto Pinterest, they're looking for their venue to get ideas for like how to decorate it. They're looking for like, how like engagement inspiration in North Carolina, etc. So it's like a really powerful tool to like kind of lean into those locations that you're wanting to shoot at. Or even if you are, say, like wanting to do elopements and you're like wanting to target a new location, Pinterest is amazing for that. Because while that can be kind of hard to do on your website, you can actually really easily target multiple locations. So like if you want to do a couple free shoots there, I did this with a photographer recently where she is based in North Carolina, but she really wanted to do more work in NYC. So she did a couple of shoots there, and then we really like focused on keywords that were surrounding NYC, micro weddings, and she started to get inquiries from Pinterest for NYC. So yeah.
So cool. I love that. I love that. I think it's so awesome to think about like future planning, right? Like this is a goal of mine. I really want to, you know, build up my services in this area, or I love travel sessions and I really love going to this area. How can I utilize not just my website, not just my blog or my, you know, Instagram feed or whatever, but how can I utilize Pinterest to help me call in those types of people? I love that idea.
Yes.
So fun.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about Pinterest and using it as a business tool, obviously we need to set up a Pinterest profile that's under the business, right? And we need to try and optimize it. And so logistically, where do we start with optimizing a profile on Pinterest?
Great question. So number one, I would say is claiming your website. This is basically it's a really easy step. You've got to put a little bit of code in the back end of your website and just essentially verify and connect it to Pinterest. And that is going to help with the reach of all of your pins. So Pinterest wants to see that you are pinning to your own website with your own content. So that just means I'm putting out fresh things. I'm not directing them somewhere else on the internet. Like this is my own website, and those pins are going to have the best reach, the ones that are going to your website, the one that you have claimed on your account. So that's step one. Next would be really doing some keyword research. So maybe you've already done this for your website, for your SEO, or SARA has done it for you. But you can actually just do this on the Pinterest platform, just in the search bar. So starting out with, say, like, you know, you're wanting to do Colorado elopements, you know, putting in Colorado elopement, and then you'll get those suggested searches. When you search it, you'll see these little colored bubbles pop up at the top a lot of times, and those will be your long-tailed keywords. So Colorado elopement venues, you know, like candid Colorado elopement, etc. So really kind of like doing some research around both your photography style and the locations you want to target. And then including like kind of your main keyword in your profile name. So say your photography business or your name, then doing like a vertical slash Colorado elopement photographer. It's great because profiles are searchable as well. Just like on Instagram or any other platform, your profile is searchable. So that's a good one. Also putting more keywords in like your profile description. You have about 500 characters there. So it's a great place to put in the styles of photography that you do, the locations, all that kind of stuff in there. And then when you think about your boards, make those keywords. So I know it's really tempting to just go for like really cute board titles. And that's how I think all of us who were like immediately like jumped on Pinterest back in the old days and you're making all your boards and you make it something cute and stuff. But with Pinterest, one of the ways that they really categorize your content is the board that it's pinned to. So it's really important that the board has a high ranking keyword as the title, and then a description with more long tailed keywords related to that main keyword that is the board title. And then so like when you're making that, then start pinning a few other pins that are high ranking for that keyword onto that board. And that helps Pinterest understand, okay, this is what this board is about. It's about Colorado elopements. And that way we're going to show it at the pins that you pin onto this board, your own pins, to people who are interested in that.
I love that. Okay. That seems so much more simple than like the way that I would have explained it. So bless you. I'm so grateful. I feel like when we're thinking through keywords, often we're like, well, that just goes as far as my website, right? I don't have an opportunity beyond my website or my blog to apply those elsewhere. False. False. We have opportunities to really make that work that we've done to conduct that keyword research go so much further for us. And that's just one example, is making those work for you on Pinterest. I love that. Okay, cool. So after we've kind of worked through those keyword optimizations, we've set up our profile, what do we do then? when it comes to creating Pinterest content, what makes good content for Pinterest?
Yeah. So I like to say that Pinterest is primarily a repurposing platform. So I really think blogging, so like any blogs that you have, whether it's portfolio or educational blogs, are where I recommend starting, just to have a unique URL to send people to. One thing that we don't want to do on Pinterest is pin to our homepage or the same URL all the time, because Pinterest will see that and they'll think that it's spam. You can get in the spam filter, and that's just a headache and a mess to get out of. So, yeah. And you also want to make sure that you are kind of sending people somewhere that makes sense. You know, a lot of times if you pin a gallery, people want to see more from the gallery if they click on that. You know, their Pinterest actually is the great thing about the platform, because it is a search platform and it's not a social media platform. They actually are wanting to direct traffic off of the platform. So people aren't just there, you know, just repinning, they're clicking through to your website. So making sure that they have a place that makes sense. It is definitely okay to, you know, just pin to a portfolio page or a contact page. That's fine. But I really like to have blog content, just because the more unique URLs you can get out there, the better. Pinterest likes that better. And it just makes for a better experience for people. So, you know, kind of like thinking through any blog content that you have, the galleries that you really want to prioritize, and then just pinning as often as you can. I say consistency is important. Pinterest likes to see that you are active. That doesn't mean you have to be on Pinterest every day, but you can schedule, you know, a handful of pins out per day, and then, you know, kind of just tweak the description a little bit with a few different keywords. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, and then you can even kind of like, you know, use the same photos and kind of crop them a little bit differently, or make collages to sort of stretch that a little bit more. So yeah, consistency and having those unique URLs, again, that are going to be to places that make sense, not to your homepage primarily, because Pinterest sees that as the same. So if you pin to a blog and then you pin to your homepage, Pinterest sees those as the same URL. So, and if you general rule is you don't want to pin to the same page more than once per day. So if you're doing that, that's when you can be at risk for the spam filter, which we want to avoid. So don't pin to the homepage, because it'll just look like you're pinning to the same link. So try to mix it up.
This episode is brought to you by What Sarah Reads, a mobile book buying experience for creative and inspired women in the greater Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. As a lifelong storyteller, a student, and a teacher of literature, an obsessive reader, and a copywriter by trade, I believe that words matter, and that reading for pleasure should be more than opening a plain brown box sent to your doorstep or swiping away a purchase confirmation on your Kindle. To me, discovering your next book to read should be an experience and an adventure. What Sarah Reads is here to help you shamelessly add to your to-be-read pile. If you're not local to the Sioux Falls area, you can still support What Sarah Reads. Every single book sale means a lot to solopreneurs like me, so please consider shopping for your next read on bookshop.org. If you select my shop at checkout, 30% of your purchase goes to supporting my small business. Thanks so much for your support. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip, and a great tactical tip too. Like, make sure that you're, you know, showing Pinterest obviously what you want to, you know, rank for or what you want to be searched for, but also make sure that you are utilizing that algorithm to really benefit you. Driving traffic to a blog post that maybe shares photos, but also like a story, a before and an after, or some sort of transformation. That is obviously going to be something that people like to spend time looking at. And again, since the purpose of Pinterest is to send you off the platform to learn more from these creators, whether you're a photographer or a copywriter or what are you, I think that it's important to make sure that wherever you are sending them, they're going to feel that good vibe. They're going to feel like, oh, this was worth my click. I like this photographer. I like this creator. I want to keep, you know, following along with them. And so maybe then it's an encouragement to like get on the email list, or it's an encouragement to, you know, follow along on social media. If there's, you know, that continuous nurture, it can start right from that Pinterest page.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Just think about that journey. I always say, think about the customer
Mm.
journey. If you were in their shoes and maybe they're planning their wedding, but maybe they're not looking for a photographer yet, but they're in those planning stages, or they're not quite sure yet, like what can you do to make a journey for them from like they just met you, they just saw your pin on Pinterest to like, they're a raving, adoring fan. So a lot of that is going to be where you send them on your website.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Customer journey is so key. So you touched on this a little bit earlier when you were talking about kind of locations and venues, especially for, wedding professionals. But for someone who serves only clients in the local space, is there any other thoughts that you have maybe related to like a specific city or a specific region of the United States or of the world? How can we utilize the power of location on Pinterest to benefit our businesses?
Yeah. So I think it really comes back to those keywords, getting on Pinterest, searching the location where you're shooting, where most of your clients are, and then just seeing, like, you can see who else is there. One thing that is great about Pinterest is the competition compared to Google is so much lower. So if you search,
Mhm.
Colorado photographer, or, like Denver elopement photographer on Google, you're going to get 20, 30, 50 results. It's
Mhm.
going to be hard to rank for, right? But on Pinterest, you might have like 5. So it's a
Mm.
lot, it's a lot easier to rank for those kinds of things on Pinterest because not as many people are utilizing the platform. But there's still quite a few people who are searching for it. And you can see that just by, typing it in and then seeing it pop up. You see like those longer tailed keywords pop up. So just kind of doing some search, seeing what's out there already. Are the people, that are doing well? Or is this maybe like, are the keywords coming up? I really love a tool called Pin Inspector as well. If you want to get a little bit more into the data behind the keywords on Pinterest specifically, that will kind of help you, that will show you like how they rank, like from highest to lowest volume and things like that. So you can see like, what specific pins are doing well for a certain keyword, how well certain keywords are ranking. So that is a paid software, but it's just like a one-time purchase. It's very low cost. So that can be a good one as well. And then just leaning into that keyword strategy again in your profile name, your description, your boards, leaning into the location, like, and even like your pin titles. I always, with all of my photography clients, I really lean into the venue name, because people are searching for that. They're looking for specifically for their venue, maybe even before they've booked their photographer, like that's like their number one thing. And then they want to see someone who's already shot a wedding there and then see what it looks
Right.
like. And then if they like that vibe, they are likely to book you. So leaning into the venue, or see if it's like an engagement shoot, things like that. Um, and then putting like at the end of the pin title, putting that vertical dash, and then, you know, New York elopement photographer, or,
Mm.
whatever, NC wedding photographer. So kind of just like reinforcing that location wherever you can. And again, like throughout all of your keywords, I like to do a mix of style. So documentary, candid, whatever, bright and airy, whatever your
Mm.
style is. And then also location, location,
I
location,
love
location,
that.
venues, wherever you can. Yeah.
Yeah. I've worked with some photographers who love to share blog content like related to like family, like favorite parks in a certain area. And I feel like that makes pretty good Pinterest content too, because you're showcasing, I know this area well enough to give you recommendations, maybe not just for this, specific photography session you're hiring me for, but I also can show expertise in this local area. Do you have thoughts about that?
Yes, absolutely. Because people are really looking for someone who's an authority. So, kind of positioning yourself as like you're an authority in this area. You know what you're doing. You have lots of recommendations because people really are looking for inspiration, and that's the
Mm.
first thing they're going to for on Pinterest is like, where do I go? What do I do? So they might be looking for like, engagement in this, city or whatever. And if you're
Right.
like best engagement spot, best spots for engagements in, New York City or, Bloomington, Indiana, wherever, or like, best spots for family photography, that's really going to show that like, okay, I can come to them and they're going to have a bunch of ideas for me.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, cool. I love that. So when we're thinking about Pinterest, I know that I'm not alone in thinking that like sometimes I feel like I got this, I can totally do this. And then other times I'm like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. How do I even get started? So what advice do you have for a photographer who's listening today and is like, I really want to do this, but where do I start? Like, what is my first 3 steps?
I think so. Your first step is first going to be like making that business account, like we talked about. Make sure you have a separate account for it versus your personal account. I'm sure we all have those personal accounts. What you don't want is to have like, all of your recipes mixed in with your photography content. We want to keep those separate. Also, a business account is going to help you read your analytics and see how things are doing. So that's the very first step. Just make the business account. And then, like we already talked about, just doing some keyword research. That's really what I would encourage people to do first, to kind of give you that strategy, because not only is it going to help you, like figure out what your title should be and your profile description, again, like creating those boards around those keywords that you really want to rank for, but also it's going to give you ideas for new content. So, blogs, like just like some SEO keyword research would help you with that. Doing some Pinterest keyword research is going to give you ideas for new content, maybe even Instagram content, that you could then repurpose the blog onto an Instagram post or whatever. So then that's going to be that next piece. And then just taking that blog content, the portfolios that you really love, and then just turning them into pins. The great thing about being a photographer is the lift is so much lower than like some of us who have to create a graphic for every single thing on Pinterest. Photographer, like I do recommend like making some things with text overlays, especially if it's something like, an educational post or, like, so do a mix. So like what I'll usually do is I'll put like 25 images or create 25 pins for one post. And then like a few of them I'll do like a simple overlay with some graphics, so a text overlay, seeing what the blog post is that I'm pinning to. And then the rest are just images or collages, just simple collages. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time at all. And then just kind of schedule those out. I love Tailwind. Tailwind is great to just kind of schedule things out in advance, but you can also schedule just right on Pinterest, up to a month in advance. So that's the great thing about
Very
Pinterest.
cool.
It's something that you can just sit down in an afternoon and just schedule them out over the month. If you can just do one a day, that's fine, just to get started. And then you don't have to be on there. Like repinning actually is not super recommended, other than when you're creating a new board and kind of establishing it. You don't have to be on there like liking other people's content or anything like that. So
That's so good to know. I feel like too, when it comes to like, when I know that a lot of people who work in retail are like, okay, well, when it's back to school time, then we need to start thinking about Christmas. And when it's Christmas time, we need to start thinking about summer and like all of the thinking ahead parts. And so tactically, I like to think about, okay, what is coming up in my business in the next quarter or two? And what kind of content do I already have related to that, right? So like if it's wintertime and you want to start getting inquiries for, I don't know, next fall's weddings, would it make sense to start pinning fall wedding content? Or what's the timing on that? What are your thoughts on that?
yes, that's great. So Pinterest Trends tool is going to be your best friend when it comes to that, to see when certain words are trending in the search. And so a lot of times it's well before the actual date, so Halloween stuff starts, trending in August. So you want to then make sure that you're creating that quite a bit before that, because the difference with Pinterest is it's not like a social media post where, your post lasts about 72 hours and then no one sees it again. So Pinterest is like the opposite. You're not probably going to have a pin that goes viral overnight. Like that doesn't really happen. It takes a while for the algorithm to pick it up, to categorize it, and then it might go and start getting traction like months later. So you want to pin it. I would say like for weddings specifically, just because people are planning so far in advance for wedding or, engagement, elopement, things like that, like 6 months at least in advance. And once you get in a rhythm of pinning, that content from that you pinned last year, when that starts to trend again, that's gonna, pick it up. So I would say at least kind of thinking 6 months ahead. So if it's summertime and people are thinking about getting, or planning a family session, I would say like family session content at least 3 months in advance.
Okay. I love that. That's so helpful. I think thinking of Pinterest like SEO as kind of a longer game. It's something that you want to plant seeds early on and plant enough seeds so that eventually you're going to have a good chance of that blossom. And it makes sense to think way ahead, especially for wedding related content. So I love that. Okay. Before I let you go, I want you to tell us all about this strategy guide that you have for us.
Yeah, so I have a free Pinterest strategy guide, and it's interactive. So it gives you a chance to kind of I like to just print things out. I'm kind of that person to print things out and then write them down. So this gives you space to do that, just to kind of think high level about your Pinterest strategy, who you're wanting to target on Pinterest, get started with your keyword research. It includes a few tutorials on exactly how to do that, and then how to start building out your account, and even a little checklist on what should I be doing, weekly, monthly on my Pinterest account to make sure that I'm covering all my bases, that my analytics are working, and that I'm setting myself up for success. So yeah, you can grab
love it. Wonderful. Wonderful. We'll have all the links to all of these great tools, the strategy guide, all the good things in the show notes. Thank you so much, Laurel, for joining me today. This has been so helpful. I'm sending you a big virtual hug because this has been just a great episode. And I feel so much more confident moving forward, even just in my own tiny little Pinterest strategy. I feel like I can do it. So I so appreciate your encouragement and your expertise. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will talk to you next time. Until then, this is your Copywriter on Call signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Copywriter on Call podcast. If this episode has you feeling all sorts of inspired to show up as yourself online, click that subscribe button so you don't miss my stories or practical advice to help you express your quirky, vulnerable, and authentic self online. Chat soon.